Part 111. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 1101. Chapter 1101. I like Tianyi. Yunyan smiled and reasoned with her. You've only slept for 5 minutes, can you wait a little longer? Didn't you just ask me how the cliff jumping scene in The Flower of the Past was shot? Let me tell you in detail. Xiaoling was unhappy. I want brother pay. I want ice cream. Yunyan now feels that Chu Chen is really prescient. This beautiful girl is a foodie. Before, she secretly laughed at Li Binjiao for being jealous of others, but now even she is a little jealous. He likes eating dessert so much and yet he has not gained weight. Such a physique will definitely arouse public outrage in the entertainment industry where everyone is working hard to diet. However, eating ice cream is easier than meeting Pei Ziyan. Yunyan said, sit here obediently, okay. I'll get you some ice cream, okay. But you can't eat too much. Can you take half a scoop? Xiaoling said, no. Yunyan wanted to bite off her tongue and just give it to her. Is that okay? She sighed and bargained, half a spoonful? No more, Brother Chu will scold me. Xiaoling was unhappy again, don't you know how to scold me back, huh? Yunyan almost wants to cry, scolding Chu Chen? I would like to ask the emperor who dares to have trouble with Chu Chen except Boss Pei. Even Pei Ziyan never scolded his beloved general. She finally understood why there was a subtle expression of relief on Manager Chu's face when she said she wanted to take care of this little ancestor. This little ancestor is a hot potato. However, Yunyan has accepted everything and now it's too late to regret it. The little princess on the sofa rubbed her eyes drowsily and staggered to stand up. If you don't give me food, I will eat it myself. Yunyan was so frightened that she quickly grabbed her. I'm going. Sit down and don't run around. This child is obviously still drunk. If something happens to her while running around, Chu Chen and Pei Ziyan will not be able to skin her. Forget it, the greater the risk, the greater the reward. Since they say they need to take care of Xiaoling, let's take good care of her. Yunyan finally calmed her down and went to get the ice cream resignedly. Xiaoling was wearing a delicate fringed shawl and was waiting on the sofa boredly. Under the uniquely tailored rose-colored tulle dress, her 2 white calves were swaying, looking very restless. After waiting for less than 10 seconds, she waved to the passing waiter, I want that cocktail. The waiter bowed and handed her a colorful cocktail on his tray. Xiaoling drank and forgot about Yunyan going to get ice cream. She was only thinking about why Pei Ziyan hasn't come back yet. He staggered off the sofa and walked along the deep and winding corridor of the club to find him. Following 1 floor at a time. Finally she was lucky and found Pei Ziyan in a small lounge on the 2nd floor. Pei Ziyan was still talking to someone on the phone. You do as you are told, and I will get the results tomorrow morning. Tianyi. It's just a small company that doesn't know what it can do. Just destroy it. His voice was cold and murderous. Xiaoling looked at his back infatuatedly, as if she didn't feel the heavy murderous aura. She smiled stupidly, walked up to him like a little bear, and hugged his waist from behind. Liar, she rubbed her little head against his handmade suit, you don't even want to play with me. Pei Ziyan was suddenly hugged by someone, and he was about to get angry. When he realized it was her, his anger suddenly turned into nothingness. He hung up the phone, turned around and hugged her into his arms. Why are you here? You're so drunk that you can't even stand still. The warm voice was as drunk as the spring breeze, and he was completely different from the cold look on the phone just now. She raised her head and looked at him with bright eyes. Play with me. With the movement, the delicate fringed shawl slipped off the body, revealing a row of exquisite collarbones and white, round shoulders. She had a pleasant fragrance on her body, like a rose blooming in late summer. Pei Ziyan kissed her. Isn't there anyone to play with you? Yes. She seemed to think hard for a while and said inarticulately, "Sister Union, there are many brothers and sisters, they are all rushing to play with me, but, they are not you, you big liar, big liar." As he spoke, his whole body fell on him. He supported her, his eyes were extremely soft. "What do you want to play?" She grabbed his clothes with one hand. "No, I don't know, who were you talking to on the phone just now? Why did it take so long?" "It's just business," he said. Xiaoling looked at him in disbelief. "Liar, liar, I don't believe what you say anymore. You just left for a while, woo." She thought hard for a long time. "Tianyi? Tianyi, I've heard of Tianyi. He, such a big company, I like it so much." Pei Xian's brows furrowed and he steadied her. "Have you ever heard of Tianyi?" "Impossible, it's just a small company that has just been established. It has never published any works, and it will go bankrupt soon." Xiaoling shook her head, still giggling. "You lied to me again, Tianyi is obviously so big, I like it so much." Pei Xian looked at her seriously, feeling that something was wrong, but what exactly was wrong? How could he take this girl's drunken words to heart? But these drunken words were like a tiny thorn, piercing his heart bit by bit. Tianyi. He is very disgusted with this company, very disgusted with it. Ever since he heard the name of this company, he told himself that he must eliminate it as soon as possible. Why? This is just a little known small company. There are so many new small companies established in the entertainment industry every year. Why would he care about this one? No. It's so wrong. In the cold night, heavy snow falls. The 92-year-old man turned over in his sleep, and the wrinkles between his brows were as deep as knife carvings. Tianyi shouldn't have appeared, he thought vaguely, at least Tianyi shouldn't have appeared so early. Didn't Xiaoling come into contact with that company only after she was reincarnated? Why did she say she liked Tianyi when she was only a teenager? Yes. This is a dream. Xiaoling in the dream, did she start to miss Li Lei at such a young age? Not allowed. He will never allow it. The snow was falling heavier and heavier, and the sleeping old man fell into a deeper dream. In the small lounge, Pei Xian lowered his head, gave Xiaoling a long kiss, and bit her lip in punishment. Well, she covered her lips and accused him with tears in her eyes. "You bullied me again. You are not allowed to mention Tianyi in front of me," he warned her solemnly. "Forget these two words, did you hear them?" "I won't," she was still in tears. "You bite me, I won't." He kissed her again, took her to the imperial concubine's bed with his long arm, and closed the door of the lounge. He tore her little dress apart in a few strokes, pressed down her restless body, and took off his own clothes. La la la, do you think this extra story is just a past life? How could I, who is so conscientious, show you a story that has exactly the same direction as the main text? This extra story is Lao Pei's dream, anything can happen in the dream. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 1102. Chapter 1102. Their home. The buttons of the finely polished suit were a little tight, and he unbuttoned them slowly with one hand. Xiaoling lay on the burgundy and soft imperial concubine's couch, looking up at him and smiling. I'll help you." She stretched out her little paws to help him unbutton his clothes. After a few times, he still couldn't unbutton it. Tugged savagely. Pei Xian was not in a hurry anymore, took one of her hands and put it to his lips and kissed her. "Like me," his voice was low and hoarse. "I like it." She was still a little drunk and smiled stupidly. "Want me?" he asked again. This time she didn't speak. She tilted her head and looked at him for a while. Liar. She reached out and tugged on his clothes again, and the buttons on his suit were torn off. She was a little dissatisfied, and pushed him with her hands and feet. You really are heavy, annoying. His whole body was pressed against hers, and he looked at her deeply when he heard the words. She put her hand against his chest and pushed for a while without success. She lost her temper and said, "You're dead, get up." Without saying a word, he turned his body to the outside to see how she was doing it. Xiaoling was drunk and confused. This time she pushed him away, turned over, imitated his behavior and pressed him under her. She smiled proudly, "I'm not heavy, so I give you an advantage." He looked at the girl crawling on him and smiled slowly, "Help me take off my clothes." With the command in an ambiguous nasal voice, the girl tilted her head and started to unbutton his shirt. After untying it twice, he finally untied it halfway, messing around with his tie, pulling off the iron gray diagonal striped tie, and raised his chin and announced to him, "I want to tie you up." He chuckled and allowed her to do whatever she wanted. She really grabbed both of his wrists and tied the tie around him like he had done to her before. But she was so drunk that she tried her best to wrap around only one hand. She could see that he very interesting. "Do you want me to help you?" Pei Ziyan asked kindly. The girl's delicate body pressed against him, making him almost unable to control himself. However, she took her time and continued to struggle with the tie with a small frown on her face. Xiaoling was for a long time, but she always felt that something was wrong, so she untied it and started again. This time, only one hand was tied up. Pei Ziyan simply pulled his other hand back, placed it under his head and looked at her with a half smile. She didn't notice it at all, and grabbed his remaining hand to tie the bow. After a long time, she finally finished tying it, and announced with satisfaction, "You are mine." "My gift." "A gift?" he asked. "Big liar." She stretched out her hand to hit him, "Not hurting. Brother Chu Chen and sister Yun Yan both gave me a lot of gifts to celebrate the success of my debut song, but you didn't give me anything." "Wow. Woo. Wouldn't it be nice to hold a celebration party for you?" he asked. "The celebration banquet is not a gift." She felt extremely wronged and hit him again, "Big bad guy." He laughed softly, looked at her lying on his body, and asked gently, "What do you want?" Xiaoling looked at him for a long time. Suddenly, she stretched out her little paws to grab his shirt and tore it on both sides. With a clatter, the buttons of his shirt fell apart, and she actually tore his shirt completely open. "I want you," she declared triumphantly, lowering her head to kiss his lips, "You are my gift." His eyes darkened, and he suddenly turned over and pressed her down, lingering all night long. "Pain. It hurts all over my body." Xiaoling was in a daze when she woke up, suffering from a hangover headache, cracking pain inside her body, and the soreness from spending the whole night on the narrow imperial concubine couch in the lounge. The memories of last night came to mind bit by bit. She turned her head and saw a man sitting not far from the window, well dressed in a shirt and trousers, looking at her silently. And her naked body was covered with his suit jacket. "Brother Pei." She called out weakly, "I feel so uncomfortable." "I told you not to drink so much yesterday," he said, still sitting where he was, with a warm voice. "You can still be so tormented after drinking. You deserve to feel uncomfortable now." Her face started to turn red as she thought about last night's scene. "I hate it." "You're getting bolder and bolder," he laughed, his eyes glancing at the iron gray tie on the ground. "Even I dare to tie you up. You can walk on the ground today and you're pretty light." She put her hand to cover her face. How could she be so unscrupulous after drinking? "Are you satisfied with the gift?" he chuckled. "Hate, hate." She still covered her face and made a sound from between her fingers, "I don't want to talk to you." "It seems you are not satisfied," he laughed again, teasing her, "I wanted to give you another one, forget it." "Who wants you to send?" She originally wanted to say who wanted to have another quarrel with him, but as she spoke, she suddenly realized something. She put down the hand covering her face and looked at him in surprise. "Brother Pei, you have prepared it for me. A gift. This is not a joke last night, this is a real gift." He smiled. "Get dressed, I'll take you somewhere." The tulle dress last night was already wrinkled and a mess. He had already asked someone to bring clean clothes for her to change into. All the guests in the club dispersed, leaving only the two of them. He took her hand and got into the car, driving smoothly all the way to a wealthy area in a prime location of the city. The newly opened villa, she looked at the beautiful houses in front of her. The twists and deep trails, the scattered red walls, the side of the wooden fence is full of roses and evergreen vines. "It's so beautiful here, like a fairy tale world." Pei Zion led her to a villa in the center and gave her a key. "For me?" she asked. After a moment of surprise, she felt a little unhappy again. "You gave me a villa again. This is the fifth one." "Huh, Brother Pei, you are really stupid. You have no creativity at all in this era of soaring housing prices." She knew very well how expensive 5 villas were, but so what? She wanted to live with him, and it was impossible to move out of the Pei family's old house. No amount of villas meant anything to her. "But this time," he said, "don't you always like living in the old house? We will move here after it is renovated. It is close to the emperor and the environment is very good." Xiaoling couldn't believe it. Really? This is something she has dreamed of, but she never thought it would come true. Looking at her surprised look, he smiled. Over the years, he has been seizing greater power, planting deeper roots in the emperor's ancient and vast empire. In the past, he didn't move out of the old house because he couldn't make the decision, but now, he can fight for a better living space for her. In the future, it will get better and better. He took her into the villa. "Let's take a look at the structure of the room and think about what kind of decoration you like. I will arrange a designer and construction team." She was eager to give it a try. "I must decorate this place well. This is our home." She turned around and hugged him happily. "Brother Pei, thank you. There are 2 more updates." End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 1103. Chapter 1103. Call me Zi Hung. He raised her delicate chin. "Call Zi Hung." The deep and mellow voice dispersed in the silent space, carrying an unspeakable temptation. Xiaoling looked at him motionless, her heart skipped a beat, and she called out of nowhere, "Zi Hung." When she read his name for the first time, it felt a little raw and strangely sweet as it flowed between her lips and teeth. Pei Zion smiled with satisfaction. "Scream again. Zion. Call again. Zion, Zion. That's good." He gave her a reward kiss. "You'll have to call her that from now on, you know." She blushed slightly. "Can't I call you Brother Pei?" She was used to calling him Brother Pei, and suddenly she wanted to change her name to him. Although she was also very happy, she was always a little reluctant and shy. "Silly girl," he said, "Xiao Yu knows how to call me by my name, how can you be so stupid?" Those words of Brother Zi Hung sounded more intimate than calling him by his last name. She was the only one who was stupid and didn't know how to adapt. "You said I was stupid." She felt aggrieved. "Aren't you stupid?" "You're stupid." She glared at him with bright eyes. "Call Sheng Zian again to listen." "Not called." "Good. No. Only a girl like her can be unscrupulous in front of him, like a butterfly flying gracefully in front of a tiger, blooming her beauty without knowing the danger." She took Pei Zion's hand and walked around the villa inside and out, coming up with many decoration ideas and discussing them with him enthusiastically. Pei Zion said to her dotingly, "Just make up your mind." The next day, she found a very good interior designer and a whole construction team. Xiaoling was busy catching up on announcements and decorating her new home. The dream home is becoming perfect little by little, with continuous red walls shaded by ivy, and clusters of roses in full bloom. Their bedroom faced a small forest and a lake. There was fog in the morning and starlight reflected on the lake at night. Standing in front of the floor-to-ceiling window, she couldn't help but think about how comfortable they would be when they officially moved in. Furniture, porcelain. She handpicked each piece. Pei Xian likes sandalwood, so she went everywhere to collect high-quality small-leaf red sandalwood. In order to balance the retro elegance with the lightness of daily home furnishings, she spent a lot of time researching how to design furniture that looks good. When she heard that there was a home improvement expo in the city, she was excited to attend. Pei Xian was very busy and could not accompany her. Xia Yu refused, saying that she was not feeling well. Xiaoling wanted to date Xiao Hua or Yun Yan, but as a new singing star, she was already conspicuous enough in the crowd. If she were to add those two popular actresses, any disguise would be useless. She sighed, put on low-key light makeup, wore an ordinary shirt and jeans, a ponytail, sunglasses, and a peaked cap, and went out alone. The Home Improvement Expo was crowded with people. She looked around and gained a lot and had many new ideas. Standing in front of a gauze screen made of rosewood bones, she admired it for a long time and couldn't help but take off her sunglasses. She was quickly recognized. "Are you Xiaoling?" The two girls ran over excitedly and surrounded her without screaming, "Hello, Xiaoling, we are your fans. I didn't expect to meet you here. I'm so excited." This was the first time she met a fan on the road, and she was a little surprised. She smiled and said, "Hello. It's really Xiaoling," the girls cheered. "Can you sign autographs for us, take a group photo, and even a group photo?" "Okay," she said in a good mood, took the eyebrow pencil from them, signed her name, and took a group photo. The girls' laughter attracted a group of people's attention. Some people nearby said, "Look, there's a star over there." In the precious wood root carving area, two elegant-looking young ladies were carrying things. One of them turned his head and glanced when he heard the commotion. At this sight, his eyes suddenly froze. Sister Jingyu," she shouted in a fuss, "look, isn't that Xiaoling over there? Why is she here at the family expo?" The person who spoke was Pei Jingshan, and soon, Pei Jingyu beside her also looked up. "Humph, it's embarrassing." Pei Jingyu was wearing a high-end handmade custom-made dress and a pearl brooch. Her voice was cold, and she looked at Xiaoling's beautiful appearance with some jealousy. "There are more and more people surrounding me." "That's right, it's embarrassing," Pei Jingshan also said. They had not dealt with Xiaoling since they were children, and now that they have grown up, their resentment has become deeper and deeper. As rich young ladies who were born with a silver spoon in their mouths, what they are most unhappy about is that the stinky girl Xiaoling is obviously from a humble background. How can she share everything they have? The Pei family has so much money, it is not used to give to beggars. "Sister Jingyu, should we go over and teach her a lesson?" Pei Jingshan has long disliked Xiaoling. As the adopted daughter of the Pei family, how can it be inappropriate to be watched in public? My eldest cousin is really, too, praising her. What kind of star does she want to be? The public appearance of an actress really lowers the status of our Miss Pei family. In fact, Pei Jingshan didn't even think about it. The Pei family runs an entertainment company, and they, the wealthy ladies, earn their food and clothing from their artists. Pei Jingyu agreed with her words, and her face seemed to be covered with a layer of frost. As soon as she saw Xiaoling surrounded by people like stars and stars, an unknown fire rose in her heart. However, relying on her identity, she did not want to go over and meet Xiaoling. She still slowly played with the root carving in her hand and said, "Don't pay attention to it." The two of them continued to look at the root carvings. Over there, Xiaoling noticed that the crowd was gathering more and more, and something seemed a little bad. She quickly put on her sunglasses again, said goodbye to them with a smile, and broke out of the encirclement to sneak away to a place with fewer people. In the nearby area, there was a root carving museum with the most expensive exhibits, so it was also the least crowded. Xiaoling plunged into it and had time to catch her breath. When I looked up, I saw two people I knew. Pei Jingyu, Pei Jingshan. She couldn't help but frown a little. It was really unlucky. How could she meet the two sisters when she went out to visit a home expo? As much as they hated her, she hated them. What are you looking at? Pei Jingshan scolded her condescendingly, you bitch. Xiaoling was furious, who are you scolding? I will scold whoever answers the question. You are so mean. Xiaoling was usually used to being arrogant, how could she bear this anger? He scolded her back on the spot, what are the two of you doing sneaking around here? You're so ugly that you don't dare to see people. You can't even stand a glance. Pei Jingshan also exploded, you bitch, what are you talking about? You eat our Pei family's food and use our Pei family's food. What are you proud of? You still have the nerve to come to the home expo. There are dozens and millions of root carvings here, you are so embarrassed to squander our Pei family's money. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 1104. Chapter 1104. Do you think you can get married? Xiaoling sneered, you're from the Pei family. Your Pei family's money is not earned by Zi Hung. What's wrong with Zi Hung's love for giving me flowers, do you care? I want all the root carvings here. The last sentence was just to make her angry. She didn't know how much it would cost to buy all the root carvings in the place, but because of Pei Xian's attitude of giving her a villa and a pink diamond ring worth hundreds of millions without blinking an eye, how much would she buy? What happened to Dui Zhendiao? Pei Xian wouldn't have any objection if he bought it, burned it, and played with it. She looked at sister Pei Jingyu arrogantly. Pei Jingshan was so angry, you are shameless. The angrier she became, the happier Xiaoling became. She called the salesperson of the exhibition hall in front of her and ordered, give me all these root carvings to install and send them to this address. He took the pen and paper on the counter and wrote down address, and took out a black gold secondary card from the exquisite lambskin bag and handed it to the salesperson. The salesperson was in bad condition. Did he witness the fight between famous ladies and rich men? He is just a white-collar worker. How many times have he seen such a big scene before? Holding the black gold card, he said tremblingly, "Ms, are you sure? These root carvings add up to a total of 65 million. It's only 65 million, Xiaoling snorted. Swipe. Her card was Pei Xian's secondary card. She didn't know how much money was in it, but a mere 65 million was probably just a drop in the bucket. The salesperson suspected that he was dreaming, so he pinched his thigh secretly, and then ran to swipe his card. Xiaoling and the Pei sisters were left standing there, glaring at each other coldly, refusing to give in to each other. For a long time, a sneer appeared on the corners of Pei Jingyu's beautiful lips. Xiaoling, do you really think that my cousin's money belongs to you? Her heart was filled with anger. It was her grandfather's birthday soon. She and Pei Jingshan were here today. I was looking for a gift for my grandpa. I originally had my eye on an agarwood wanchao wujiang root carving, but before I could buy it, Xiaoling robbed it halfway. Xiaoling also sneered, whose money do you care who I use? You can buy it if you can. If you can buy all the root carvings here, I will never stop you, ha. I'm afraid you don't have that much money, right? She deliberately irritating Pei Jingyu. Pei Jing's tone made her vomit blood. She really wanted to take a breath and follow Xiaoling's example and buy everything in the place, but she couldn't. She had planned all her money, investing and saving, and she didn't open an unlimited credit card. Where did the 65 million in active funds come from? I can only say bluntly, I'm not as prodigal as you. I think you can't afford to lose, haha. Xiaoling was not forgiving at all. Pei Jingyu was about to vomit blood again, her face was ashen, and she stared at Xiaoling with her almond-shaped eyes, wishing to burn a hole in her face. Suddenly, he smiled faintly, Zi Hung? You are so affectionate when you scream. You spend the money you got from selling yourself very happily, right? You are just a despicable mistress, how dare you show off your power in front of me? Xiaoling trembled all over and was stunned by her scolding. After a few seconds, she asked, what did you say? Pei Jingyu looked at her arrogantly, I said you were just a despicable mistress. Stop pretending, Xia Yu has spilled the beans a long time ago. Many people in the Pei family know that you slept with your cousin, you can't hide that. Other people. I didn't mean to hide it at first, Xiaoling argued hastily, we are not as dirty as you think. I am not his mistress, we really love each other. She did not expect that things would be spread like this. Pei Ziyan originally told her not to show off, but that was because she wanted to be a big star and it was not convenient for her to make her relationship public, so she kept it a secret. She has been very careful in the past few years, but she never expected that she would be looked down upon so badly by the Pei family. Mistress. This word was like a sharp thorn, piercing into her heart. They must have guessed wrong, not her. Pei Jingyu sneered, still pretending? I've seen too many shameless like you who want to climb up. Do you know how our Pei family usually treats people like you? Sleep, just throw it away, haha. In a few years, my cousin will marry a well-known Chiyuan, and he will treat you like garbage. She saw Xiaoling's expression change, and felt happy in her heart. Xiaoling has never thought about what Pei Jingyu said. In her heart, it is natural and logical to announce her relationship and be with Pei Ziyan after becoming famous. She told herself not to fall for Pei Jingyu's plan to sow discord, suppress the panic in her heart, and said sternly, nonsense. Zi Hung will not marry a well-known Chiyuan, he will marry me, this is her. What I have been dreaming about since I was 16 is to be his bride one day. Pei Jingyu looked at her with pity, idiot, go look up the history of the Pei family and see which high-ranking person like the eldest cousin has ever married a lowly girl from a commoner background. Which of the wives of the chairman of the Pei family is not a socialite? Are you crazy about wanting to marry a wealthy little bitch? The toad also wants to eat swan meat. Xiaoling's body was trembling slightly. She didn't believe it at first, but Pei Jingyu's words could not be refuted. She said dryly, I won't listen to your nonsense. I will definitely marry him. After a pause, looking at the hateful look on Pei Jingyu's face, she put on an arrogant expression again. The posture, instead of caring about me, it is better to care about yourself. When I become your cousin-in-law, I will kick you out, deduct all your pocket money, and marry you to a poor and hateful ugly guy. Huh. The eyes of both parties met in mid-air, sparks crackling. Pei Jingyu sneered, we'll see. She led Pei Jingshan away. Xiaoling stared at their backs for a while, then she felt like a deflated ball, frustrated and discouraged. Are they telling the truth? It's impossible for Pei Ziyan to marry her? Although she said she didn't believe it, Xiaoling really went back to find Zhou's mother and asked, Zhou's mother, can you tell me about the Pei family? Zhou's mother was washing clothes. After hearing this, she quickly wiped her hands and asked Xiaoling to sit on the porch. The laundry room is not a place for a lady like you, Zhou Ma said with a kind smile. Miss, why are you interested in hearing about the Pei family today? Haven't you always disliked contact with them? Xiaoling bit her lip, feeling worried. Zhou's mother asked, what happened? Xiaoling then said, Mother Zhou, have the Pei family produced many chairmen of the board? Like Zi Hung? What kind of people are their wives? I heard that they are all Shiyuan from famous families. There are no civilians, is it true? She looked at Joe's mother without blinking, waiting nervously for a reply. Jo Ma's head buzzed, and she thought to herself, here we come. The lady finally realized that something was wrong. What would happen to her in the future if she was with her husband so unclearly? Marriage, that's not possible. But, would it be too cruel to tell her the truth now? End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 1105. Chapter 1105, Treating Her South Well. Joe's mother thought for a while and carefully selected her words. The Pei family has always been a famous family, and the wives of the chairman have always been from extraordinary backgrounds. They were either rich or noble. You know, since ancient times, marriages have always been about being of the right family. Xiaoling's face turned pale slightly, and she asked with a glimmer of hope, are there no exceptions? Joe's mother sighed and shook her head. Although it was cruel, she didn't want the girl to have too much hope. The greater the hope, the greater the disappointment. She was worried that one day her husband would marry a wife, and the girl would be heartbroken. Xiaoling murmured, no, there will definitely be exceptions. Joe's mother held her hand with her rough and cracked hand. Miss, I know what you are thinking. You want to marry Mr., don't you? But do you know how difficult it is? Mr. is the chairman of the emperor. His marriage can only be a business marriage, and everyone will oppose him marrying you. Xiaoling said softly, I don't believe it. The breeze blew through the corridor, picking up a strand of her hair, which was as messy as her mood. She sat in the wind for a long time and said to herself, Brother Pei will not let me go. He said we would have children and gave me such a beautiful ring. He is so good to me, how could he hurt my heart? Miss, what else did Jo Ma want to persuade her to do? What are you talking about? Suddenly, a deep male voice spoke. Joe's mother was startled and turned around. First, sir, you are back. Xiaoling also turned her head and saw the man standing by the porch. Today, Pei Ziyan is still wearing a suit. The dark gray material with excellent texture highlights his tall figure, making him as perfect as a god. Uncharacteristically, she did not greet him with a smile, but stared at him blankly, not moving or speaking. What's the matter, Xiaoling? He took a few steps forward and walked to her side and asked. He looked so gentle and considerate that it made her nose feel sour and she wanted to cry. I can't imagine losing him one day. It must be the most tragic and terrifying purgatory in the world. Raising her head, she asked cautiously, Zi Hung, will you marry me? You will marry me, right? Pei Ziyan's eyes dimmed and he glanced at Joe's mother calmly. Joe's mother knew that she had done something wrong. Her husband always didn't like her talking too much to the young lady, so she lowered her head in embarrassment. You have nothing to do here, Pei Ziyan said to Joe's mother, you go down first. Joe's mother hurriedly withdrew. Pei Ziyan stretched out his hand to touch Xiaoling's soft cheek, and his voice was as gentle as a spring breeze. Why are you suddenly thinking wildly? Don't you know if I'm good to you or not? Xiaoling lowered her head slightly and said sullenly, I know. You know you are still thinking wildly. Pei Ziyan's voice paused. What did you buy today? Why are you not happy after buying so many things? She used his secondary card, and there would be text messages for large purchases. She said, a bunch of useless things. Zi Hung, I met Pei Jingyu and Pei Jingshan. They said you would not marry me. They said I was just a mistress. Her expression was vague. Feeling pain, confusion, and helplessness, she was really scared, afraid that what the Pei sisters were telling was the truth. Pei Ziyan's expression turned cold and he asked softly, Pei Jingyu and Pei Jingshan. Xiaoling nodded. I will teach them a lesson. Such an old person can't even control his own mouth. Pei Ziyan said solemnly, Xiaoling, you are not a mistress. I said I want you to be happy for the rest of your life. We will continue to do so in the future. There will be children, and we will grow old together, and we will have descendants around our knees. Do you believe in me or those people who have nothing to do with you?" She was slightly in a trance by the wonderful future he described, and a faint smile appeared on the corner of her beautiful lips. "So, you will marry me?" Hope rekindled in her eyes, but Pei Jingyu and Zhou's mother both said that the emperor's chairman's wife always comes from a famous family. "Will you marry an orphan?" Pei Ziyan looked at her tenderly. "Is it so important whether you marry or not?" She seemed to be about to cry. "Won't you marry me?" Pei Ziyan was silent for a moment and then said, "You are still young, so sing well. I do not plan to get married in the next few years, and our relationship is not yet open to the public. But one day, I will tell the whole world that you are my woman. You just have to wait patiently for that day to come." It is impossible for him to marry her. Marriage is a tool for seeking business interests, and he is burdened with responsibilities to the family. But he couldn't tell her the truth. The girl was too young to accept this reality. After a few years, when she is older, she may become more sensible. Except for marriage, he can give her all the promises. Xiaoling misunderstood his meaning and thought that telling the world meant marrying her. She burst into tears and smiled, snuggling her body into his arms. "Okay. I'm so stupid, why should I listen to those annoying people? I knew you wouldn't let me go, Zi Hung, we must be happy in this life." He hugged her silently. After soothing the girl in his arms for a long time, he put her to sleep at night and went to find Zhou's mother. The man under the starry sky looked sternly. "I don't want you to say those nonsense words to Xiaoling again." Zhou's mother said, "Sir, the lady will find out the truth one day. She will be sad. She is still young, and the sky is falling for her now. It will get better in a few years. She will understand that she can still be happy without getting married. He will spend many years pampering and caring for her. When the day comes that he marries a certain Zhiyuan from a famous family, she will not doubt his love." Zhou's mother looked gloomy. Which girl could accept this kind of thing? However, she couldn't say anything about her husband's decision, so she could only respond, "Yes." Happiness that is walking on thin ice will continue to be in danger. Zhou's mother lamented the misery of the young lady's life. She was such a beautiful and kind-hearted girl, but her whole life was ruined just because she didn't have a good family background. Since this conversation, she became twice as kind to Xiaoling. Because she understands better than anyone else that Xiaoling's happiness may only last for a few years, and one day in the future, the world will fall apart and the earth will fall apart, causing her to be filled with grief. Her whole life will be ruined by Pei Ziyan. Even if he cannot marry her, Pei Ziyan will not let her go. In this life, they are destined to be entangled. Xiaoling didn't have as many worries as Zhou's mother. After being comforted by Pei Ziyan, she started a carefree life again. Zi Hung loved her so much, how could he not marry her? So what if the previous chairman of the Pei family were all in business marriages? Zi Hung wouldn't. She believed in him without reservation. The villa was decorated day by day, and a year later, they moved. Pei Ziyan's uncle was so angry that he jumped up and cursed that he had been possessed by a vixen. Which chairman of the Pei family in history had moved out of his old house and lived in another place? Xiaoling, take this as proof of love. Look, he is so kind to her and breaks so many rules. One day he will marry her. There are 2 more updates. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 1106. Chapter 1106 Engagement News. Later, when the 92-year-old Pei Ziyan recalled this long life, he discovered that the happiest years of his life were actually the years when Xiaoling was looking forward to becoming his bride with longing. If he could turn back time, he would definitely give her a grand wedding before any harm could happen. If that was the case, could he continue to have her innocent smile for more than 10 years or decades? However, his lifelong promise was destroyed by his arrogance. At that time, it was just ordinary. The young and distinguished business emperor, the little girl who cared for him, slowly grew up, from a little trainee to a singing queen who is popular all over the world. During her singing, countless people bowed and prostrated. No matter how amazing her achievements were, she always looked at him with admiration and admiration in her eyes. He is her heaven. The day the sky fell, it was an ordinary day. In early autumn, when Xiaoling went out, she saw the first ray of golden color among the green ginkgo leaves. She happily and carefully picked off the leaf, thinking that she would show it to him after the morning announcement was finished. Autumn came so early this year and was so beautiful. It must be a good time for romance and harvest. Chu Chen accompanied her in the nanny car. There was an assistant and a makeup artist in the car, and the atmosphere was unusually silent. She was a little strange and said with a smile, "What's wrong with you? You are usually so lively, why don't you talk today? Could it be that you are nervous about filming a new announcement?" The assistant and the makeup artist smiled reluctantly. How could it be possible? "Sister Xiaoling, you are not even nervous," she said cheerfully. "Everyone, be happy and cheer up. I'll treat you all to dinner after I finish filming the announcement. By the way, Chu Chen, when will Zi Hung finish your work today? I just came back from a business trip yesterday, and my feet are not touching the ground today. You can contact him later and ask him to come and have dinner with us when he is done." The assistant and makeup artist both looked at Chu Chen. Chu Chen smiled. "I'm afraid the boss is not available today. He was not in the company some time ago and has a backlog of things to deal with." Xiaoling, EMPTV just called and said that the program has changed and the recording time has been moved forward. You will have it this afternoon. Let's go and shoot that promotional video, and let's have a light meal for lunch. Ah! Xiaoling was disappointed. She thought everything would be fine in the afternoon. Chu Chen still smiled. "The good news is that your schedule will be free tomorrow. The boss's secretary just asked me for your schedule and said that the boss plans to take you out to play." Really, she was no longer disappointed instantly, her eyes were shining. "I knew he was the best." Chu Chen responded with a normal expression. The group of people escorted her into the TV station building. Today was an exclusive interview program. She was mainly invited to talk about her journey to stardom and every detail of her life in front of and behind the scenes. After entering the exclusive lounge, the emperor prepared her own makeup team to put on makeup for her. Everyone was uncharacteristically silent the whole time. Xiaoling lowered her head to the question and answer sheet and didn't notice. Someone knocked on the door, and a staff member from the TV station walked in and said to Chu Chen, "Mr. Chu, the interview room has been decorated. Please go and confirm if there are any problems." Chu Chen said, "Acha, go and confirm." Acha is Xiaoling's assistant. Hearing this, he responded and was about to confirm, but Xiaoling stopped him. "Wait a minute." She raised her head and said to Chu Chen, "You have always been the one to go, why did you ask Acha to go today? How can she understand my aesthetic style and preferences like you do? Go check it out and don't make any mistakes." Chu Chen said, "You are becoming more and more popular. You need to train Acha more and let her take on big responsibilities." "I don't care," Xiaoling said, "I want you to go." She was unreasonable when she got angry, not to mention that these days were still extraordinary times. Chu Chen didn't want to make her unhappy over such a trivial matter, so he had to give in. "Okay, I'll go, Chu Chen said, giving Acha a meaningful look. "Take good care of Xiaoling and don't let anyone else come in, you know." "Yes," Acha solemnly assured. Chu Chen then hurried away. Unexpectedly, an accident happened. A TV station staff brought over a question and answer sheet and asked, "Is Mr. Chu Chen here? We have temporarily adjusted a few questions on the talk show and need to trouble him to confirm." "Brother Chu is not here," it was Ah Cha's voice. "Go to the studio to find him." Wait a minute, Xiaoling was looking at the question and answer sheet. She heard that the question had changed. "Just bring it over to me to confirm. The show will start recording soon. You can check it with him and then he can give it to me." "How come it's too late? Isn't this inappropriate?" Ah Cha suddenly said this out of nowhere today. Xiaoling frowned. "Why are you all so weird? Should he answer these questions or should I answer them? You will have to show them to me sooner or later. What's wrong with me checking first?" Speaking, he reached out to the staff unhappily. "Bring it here." The staff looked at Ah Cha, then at Xiaoling, weighed it up, and handed the question and answer form to Xiaoling. "Just kidding, this arrogant singing queen is well known in the industry for being difficult to maintain. Many people who accidentally offended her have lost their jobs, and he doesn't want to lose their jobs." Ah Cha couldn't stop her in time and watched Xiaoling take the question and answer form. Her face changed with fear. "What's that expression on your face?" Xiaoling was dissatisfied. "I can't even check the questions." What a fuss! As soon as he finished speaking, his eyes glanced at the question and answer table, and all his voice suddenly disappeared. On the newly released question and answer form, several new questions were circled in red pen. Among them, the most eye-catching and bold one is, "Miss Xiaoling, what do you think of the engagement between Mr. Pei Xian and Ms. Wang Jingguan?" Pei Xian got engaged. For a moment she suspected that she was dazzled. She took the question and answer sheet and looked at it again, and even stopped breathing. How could Pei Xian be engaged? The target is still a woman she has never heard of. Her face was pale and the world was spinning. She heard her dry voice asking, "Is this written wrong? When did Zi Hong get engaged? How come I don't know? Didn't Mr. Pei tell you?" The staff member was surprised. "A few days ago, we booked an entire island for an engagement ceremony, and even issued a media release. It spread everywhere." Xiaoling's breathing became tight. Impossible. Suddenly, he turned to look at Ah Cha and the others. "He's engaged? Do you know?" Acha and the makeup artist on the side were already frightened and didn't know how to react. They had heard about Pei Xian's engagement a few days ago, and they were envious of how beautiful the engagement photos were. However, Chu Chen solemnly told them not to tell Xiaoling. Now that Xiaoling knew about it, would Chu Chen skin them? End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 1107. Chapter 1107. The crystal dream is broken. Xiaoling looked at them and suddenly understood what the strange silence of the people around her these days meant. "You've known this for a long time, haven't you? Just hid it from me." Her voice was trembling, and she glanced at the team of assistants and makeup artists unsteadily. "When did he want you to hide it from me?" Assistant Ah Cha opened her mouth. "Sister Xiaoling." She didn't know how to comfort Xiaoling. Although the relationship between Xiaoling and Pei Xian was a secret, several staff around her knew about it. The man she loved was engaged, but the bride-to-be was not her. No woman could accept such a thing, not to mention Xiaoling was so proud. The staff of the TV station did not understand the reason and said, "I'm sorry, Miss Xia, we don't know that you don't know. Mr. Pei wants to give you a surprise, right? I'm so sorry, so sorry." Xiaoling shook her head and used all her strength not to lose her composure. She forced herself to ask the staff, "Where is the news? I want to read the news." The staff happened to have a newspaper on hand, which was a prop prepared for the talk show. The headline on the front page was about Pei Xian's engagement. He handed it to Xiaoling smoothly. Xiaoling took it with trembling hands. It was a full-page color report. The most eye-catching part was a large and dazzling photo, azure sea level, golden dreamlike beach, the man she had been in love with for more than 10 years. Wearing a pure white tuxedo, he took the hand of a beautiful woman across from him and put a huge diamond ring on her hand. In the photo, they look at each other affectionately. A match made in heaven, this is the word used to describe this beautiful couple on the front page. Xiaoling read at a glance and read the news reports. The two got engaged 3 days ago on a beautiful island in the South Pacific. The ceremony was very low-key. Only a few relatives, friends, celebrities, and dignitaries were invited, but the standards were very high and the atmosphere was beautiful. The dress worn by Wang Jingguan is priceless. The newspaper slipped from Xiaoling's hand. She cannot accept this reality, or is everything just a dream? I want to find him, she murmured. I want to ask Zi Hong for a clear answer. After saying that, she turned around and ran out of the dressing room, stumbling along the way and bumping into several people. Sister Xiaoling. Ms. Xia, you still want to record the show? Behind her, assistants and TV staff were busy shouting something, but she couldn't hear a word. Her mind was in chaos and her heart was beating fast. How much she wanted to tell herself that this was a dream, a bad joke played by everyone together on her. As long as Pei Xian is found. As long as you find Pei Xian, ask him clearly. He would hold her in his arms as always and say softly and lowly, silly girl, none of that is true. She got into the nanny car and told the driver, drive. Go to the emperor. The driver was stunned. Didn't you go to record the program? So fast. In the rearview mirror, I saw assistants Cha, Chu Chen and others chasing him out, shouting something anxiously as they ran. Xiaoling didn't want to see them, these liars who ganged up to bully her. She urged the driver sternly, drive quickly. Believe it or not, I will fire you. The driver didn't dare to be lazy and quickly stepped on the accelerator and rushed out. Along the way, she felt chills all over her body, and her mind was filled with the photo in the newspaper. How handsome Pei Xian was in the photo. She had never seen him wearing such a beautiful tuxedo. That woman, the one named Wang Jingguan, how could a woman be worthy of him? Wang Jingguan is not even as good looking as Xiaoling. The car arrived at the entrance of the main building of the Emperor Company, and a doorman helped her open the door. Xiaoling came down in a daze and heard the doorman exclaim, Miss Xia. Are you feeling unwell? Why do you look so ugly? Do you want us to send you to rest and call a doctor? Get out. She was angry. He said, pushing away the hand that the doorman was trying to hold. The doormen who work at the Emperor have long been accustomed to her arrogant and domineering temper. Originally, if she hadn't seen that she was a girl who was favored by the chairman, who would be willing to deal with her? After being scolded for no reason, the doorman stepped back. Next to him, his companion snorted dissatisfiedly, what's so great? The chairman pampers her. The future chairman's wife may not pamper her with her bad temper. When Wang Jingguan gets married, let's see how to deal with her. Xiaoling heard something vaguely and was filled with fear. Normally, with her temperament, she would definitely turn around and scold the doormen, and even ask them to go to the Human Resources Department to pay their wages and leave on the spot. However, today, she was not in such a mood. Once upon a time, even the doorman at the door dared to talk about her like this. Is it all because the emperor wants to have a mistress? She walked toward Pei Xian's office. The people at the secretary desk were shocked when they saw her. Ms. Xia. Are you okay? Xiaoling used all her strength to ask, where is Pei Xian? Her voice was hoarse, as if she was seriously ill. The person at the secretary desk said, the chairman is having a meeting in the VIP conference room on the 17th floor. I don't know when it will end yet. Can I help you go to the lounge to wait for him? Just now, Chu Chen specially called to explain that Xiaoling might. He ran to the company and asked her to help Xiaoling take a rest, saying it was the chairman's order. But, Xiaoling said, no, I'll go find him. The secretary was in a dilemma, but the chairman ordered. I said I would go find him. Xiaoling suddenly became angry, and her sharp voice startled the secretary. However, the secretary still held her back. Ms. Xia, you can't go. Let go. The secretary will not let go no matter what. The chairman's order is an iron law. Anyone who can be a secretary here knows very well that if he violates it once, his job will be lost. Xiaoling saw that she wouldn't let go, so she pushed out hard. The secretary grabbed her on the sleeve of her forearm. She was wearing a stage costume that she was preparing to record on a TV station. It looked beautiful, but the material was very fragile. When she was pulled like this, a long piece of clothing immediately split. A cut. Xiaoling ignored the opening and turned around to walk to the 17th floor. The secretary was in a hurry to hold her back. Xiaoling was so angry that she slapped her with her backhand. The loud voice echoed in the air, and the secretary covered his face and froze. Xiaoling went to the 17th floor without looking back, leaving only a determined figure behind. 17th floor. Thick, heavy door of the VIP conference room. The beautiful girl's face was pale, and her torn clothes looked very embarrassed. She stood at the door for a while, took a deep breath, and opened the door. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 1108. Chapter 1108 Joke. The atmosphere in the conference room was solemn, with directors in dark suits sitting together. There were many Pei family members that Xiaoling knew, and there were also a few unfamiliar directors that she didn't know. Hearing the sound at the door, many people looked up and saw her with different expressions. Pei Zion, who was sitting at the top, did not move. He lowered his head and studied a piece of information. The wrinkles between his eyebrows were as deep as a knife. Xiaoling kept opening the door and stood quietly by the door looking at him. The man was still as cold and majestic as a god, making her admire and admire him. At this moment, time was frozen, and under the eyes of everyone, her heartbeat was beating like a drum. She wanted to rush forward and ask him something, but she couldn't move forward. She is afraid. Afraid of hearing the unbearable answer, afraid of him telling her personally that he was engaged. When the end came, she stood alone by the door, in a dilemma. Pei Zion flipped through the information at hand. Biomedia, owned by the Wang family, is their best-run business in the entertainment industry, but it can only be regarded as useless to the emperor. After the merger, there will be a lot of redundant trivial matters to deal with. I will raise this point with the Wang family and at the same time strive for better interests for emperor in the cruise cooperation business. The first person on his right side is his great-uncle Pei Zhenyuan. Pei Zhenyuan had already seen Xiaoling at this time, sneered, and said, Zi Hung, you know why the negotiation is more difficult than expected. Although the Wang family has promised to marry their daughter to you, they don't want you to embarrass Miss Wang Jingguan. At least take care of your own people. Pei Zion suddenly raised his head, followed his uncle's line of sight, and saw Xiaoling. Although his affair with Xiaoling was kept secret, for more than 10 years, these big directors of the emperor were more or less aware of it. The entire conference room was silent, and meaningful eyes looked back and forth between the two people. Pei Zion's voice was deep, Xiaoling, go out and wait for me. He didn't ask why she came, because Chu Chen had already called him and told him that Xiaoling had unexpectedly learned about the engagement. Originally, he planned to take Xiaoling out to relax tomorrow and let her accept the news slowly and skillfully. But now it seems that all plans have been messed up. Xiaoling looked at him sadly, her heart sinking to the bottom of her heart. No need to ask, Page and Yuan's cynicism just now said it all. He is really engaged. Why, she said softly, why are you engaged to another woman? You said you would pamper me and love me forever, have you forgotten all about it? Tears filled his vision, and even he looked so blurry. Pei Ziyan frowned, be good, go out and wait for me. She did not go out to wait for him. Instead, she was irritated. She rushed to him in a few steps, grabbed his handmade high-end suit and yelled at him hoarsely, don't coax me with such a childlike tone. I am nothing, baby. Why did you lie to me? Why did you end up getting engaged to another woman after I've been with you for so many years? She stared at him angrily with tears in her eyes, her body trembling. Pei Ziyan frowned even more, raised his wrist and looked at his watch, the meeting will be suspended for 10 minutes. After saying that, he held Xiaoling with one hand and took her out of the conference room semi-forcibly. What are you going to do? He threw her against the wall, pressed her shoulders with both hands, and said angrily, I asked Chu Chen to say that I will have a whole day with you tomorrow, and we can have a good discussion then. This question. Didn't you see me in the meeting? Your meeting is more important than mine, isn't it? She cried again and shouted, what do you think I am? Don't make unreasonable troubles. Pei Ziyan took a deep breath and suppressed the anger rising in his heart. The cooperation of the Wang family is at a critical juncture. Be obedient and wait for me in the lounge. I will come to you after the meeting. I won't, she cried heartbrokenly. Pei Ziyan, don't marry that woman. It's just a business marriage, Pei Ziyan said. Just because she marries me doesn't mean we can't be together. Wang Jingguan knows you exist and can tolerate you, this is one of the conditions for me to agree to marry her. She knows very well that she is whatever you do, Xiaoling, you must be sensible and understand the general situation. Go to him, she couldn't help but cry and swore, I hate you. Pei Ziyan looked down at her and said, I'm going to a meeting now. You go and have a rest and calm down. We'll talk about it later. He let her go, turned around, and returned to the meeting room. Xiaoling rushed to him, hugged his body from behind, and burst into tears. Zi Hung, don't go, please don't go, don't marry that woman, okay? Please, please. This was the first time she begged him, crying and heartbroken. He opened her hand bit by bit and walked to the conference room without looking back. She was left alone, sitting on her knees in the long, empty corridor, crying until her heart broke. She cried in the corridor as long as the meeting lasted. Gradually, news spread within the emperor. It was said that the Queen Xiaoling burst into tears outside the VIP conference room on the 17th floor. Could it be that she had offended the chairman and was finally losing power? Some people pretended to be passing by, spying on her with curious and gossipy eyes, but she couldn't care less. When the meeting ended, well-dressed directors walked out in twos and threes. Pei Zhenyuan, a man with white hair, passed her far away and paused. How dignified is that? A condescending, disdainful voice. She cried and grabbed the trousers of his suit, and bowed her head to this old man who had never dealt with her for the first time. Uncle, please advise Zi Hung, please. Don't let him marry that woman, don't. Pei Zhenyuan scolded, let go. Don't you think you are embarrassed enough? If it weren't for the fact that you can still sing and serve the emperor, do you think the Pei family can tolerate you today? Don't call me uncle, you too match. Between his fingers, the cold and smooth texture of suit pants material suddenly disappeared, and Pei Zhenyuan strode away. Xiaoling was in a daze and waited for Pei Ziyan at the door for a long time. However, she didn't wait for him to come out even after the crowd had dispersed. But Chu Chen came over, gently helped her up, and said, let's go, don't wait any longer. The boss is very busy today, and there are several important matters that cannot be delayed. So, my things can be delayed, she choked and murmured. Chu Chen was silent for a long time before he said, Xiaoling, you have to accept your fate. What is fate? We who are from common people should not think about fighting with their wealthy families. Only by obeying the rules can we survive. Perhaps recalling the past of his youth, Chu Chen rarely said to her sincerely, Xiaoling, we are all lucky. It's not bad, you have good clothes and good food, and everyone respects you, you shouldn't be too greedy. So, I want to marry him because I am greedy, she cried again. You all think I'm wrong, don't you? Over the years, you have looked at my wishful thinking, is it like a joke? End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 1109. Chapter 1109, Meeting with Wang Jingguan. She was helped back by Chu Chen and sent home to rest. Zhou's mother was so frightened when she saw her face that she quickly helped her sit down to rest and made hot soup. Xiaoling had no appetite and couldn't drink anything. She stared at the bowl of soup in a daze, and then started crying again. Zhou's mother was so distressed that she hugged her and said, Miss, my good lady, this is a woman's life. Stop crying and don't get into trouble with your husband. When Miss Wang comes in, she will ask your husband to protect you, that's it. Xiaoling's body trembled slightly. Who am I? My mistress. It turns out that Pei Jing's prediction came true more than 10 years ago, and she was a shameful mistress. It's funny that she was still full of confidence at that time, thinking that she could do anything with Pei Xian's favor. In fact, it was the Pei family who knew the Pei family best, and they were all equally cruel and cruel. Zhou's mother coaxed her for a long time, but with little effect. She sat on the sofa in the living room in a daze all day, her tears dried up and she didn't think about food or tea. Pei Xian came home very late. It was late at night and the sky was filled with stars. He stepped into the door and saw the lifeless girl in the living room like a broken rag doll. He frowned, walked over and said, Why aren't you sleeping yet? She turned her back to him and ignored him. Zhou's mother came over tremblingly, fearing that they would quarrel, and consoled her, Sir, there is soup in the kitchen. Why don't you accompany the lady to have some supper? The lady has not eaten all day, and I can't bear this going on. Pei Xian said, Okay. Took off his coat and handed it to Zhou's mother, then walked towards Xiaoling. Are you still angry? He pulled her body, but she struggled hard but failed to break away. Xiaoling raised her head and looked at him. Her eyes were swollen like walnuts, but her tears had dried up and she couldn't cry anymore. I hate you. Crying like this, Pei Xian gently stroked the mottled tears on her cheeks with his fingers. Your makeup is ruined. I don't like to see you crying, so just smile. She threw his hand away angrily. Pei Xian pulled her into his arms, raised her chin, and forced her to look at him. Xiaoling, whether you want it or not, I will marry Wang Jingguan. It seems that I have pampered you to the point of being lawless in the past few years. You don't even listen to what I say? Go wash your face, take good care of yourself, and put away your bad temper. My wedding date with her is scheduled for 2 months. By then, I want you to sing on stage. Bless us with your best singing. She trembled violently and looked at him in disbelief. Going on stage to sing? For a wealthy daughter like Wang Jingguan to accept you is to give you face and to give me face. So we must give her face too. Pei Xian said, You are the emperor's best singer. If you don't sing, who will sing? I don't, she said weakly, her heart breaking into pieces. Why are you so cruel? Am I cruel? Pei Xian's voice was cold. Is it cruel to exchange a song for her to treat you well in the next few decades? She is the daughter of a wealthy family. She has been the head of the family and eliminated love rivals since she was in elementary school. If she wants to move, you have a lot of options, but I may not be able to protect you from the intrigues of these women. Why don't you try to gain some goodwill for yourself? Living in harmony with her will do you no harm. He is a man and has many things to do every day. How can he take care of the trivial matters in the house? Even if Xiaoling can be protected from life-threatening danger, her status in the music industry and her money are not in danger. There are still hundreds of ways that a housewife can use to make people suffer in the most trivial matters every day. His Xiaoling is so innocent, what if she is bullied? He wanted her to be happy and as carefree as before. However, Xiaoling said, I won't, Pei Ziyan, don't let me go on stage to sing. You are not allowed to marry her, you don't want to marry her, do you hear me? Pei Ziyan, Pei Ziyan. Her voice gradually turned to pleading. Zhou's mother brought the soup over. Sir, please give me some advice. Pei Ziyan took the small soup in her hand. The golden chicken soup inside exuded a strong aroma. He lowered his eyebrows and lowered his eyes, put a small spoonful to Xiaoling's mouth, and said warmly, eat something, be good. She pushed it away at once, and the white porcelain soup goo smashed to pieces on the ground, and the chicken soup was spilled, leaving a mess everywhere. Pei Ziyan's expression turned cold. Think about it carefully. After saying that, he turned and walked away. She was left behind, looking at the blisters on her hands, feeling extremely painful. Originally, Pei Ziyan was going to take her out to relax the next day, but her behavior last night angered him, and he was busy with business, so he went to the emperor as usual. Xiaoling was alone at home. She didn't answer Chu Chen's calls. After a while, she faintly heard Zhou's mother saying from downstairs, Mr. Chu, Miss is at home. She's not in a good mood. She hasn't done anything since yesterday. Eve. If you have time, come and stay with her to persuade her. Okay, I'll wait for you. She didn't want to see Chu Chen, so she locked the door. I stayed at home like this for a whole day and didn't get any water or rice. Pei Ziyan came back at nightfall and ordered her coldly, Xiaoling, if you don't eat, do you believe I will pour it down for you? She wanted to cry again. If you promise me not to get married, I will eat. She originally thought that she could call the wind and rain, and be omnipotent with his favor, but now she discovered that he was the only one who could really control the wind and rain, and if he didn't allow it, it would be difficult for her to achieve whatever she wanted. The only thing I can do is to beg him. Pei Ziyan, she looked at him sadly, don't get married, okay? Xiaoling, how long are you going to make trouble? He ignored her and asked Zhou's mother to cook millet porridge and bring it over. He pinched her chin forcefully, forced her to open her mouth and poured the whole bowl of porridge in. She was choked and coughed, her thin back was shaking, and she was struggling desperately. He looked at her coldly, dragged her onto the bed, and roughly claimed her body. She is his. From body to mind, everyone must be obedient and obedient. Xiaoling felt like she had died. When the morning light penetrated her eyes, she lay on the bed like a dead body and stared at it for a long time. The autumn colors outside the floor-to-ceiling windows were so beautiful, and she could already feel the chill of late winter. She doesn't want her love to die. Struggling to get up, she tried to find Wang Jingguan's phone number and asked the famous lady she had never met to meet at a high-end coffee shop in the city. Wang Jingguan arrived as promised. That was an elegant and noble woman, wearing a well-tailored custom suit, carrying a Hermes Birkin bag, and a sparkling engagement diamond ring on her finger. She looked at Xiaoling calmly. After a moment, she smiled dignifiedly and spoke first. Zi Hong told me that you wanted me to marry into the Pei family and take good care of you. The aura of the top 10 big breasts. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 1110. Chapter 1110. It seems like an old friend is here. Xiaoling assumed an unprecedented low profile. Miss Wang, Zi Hung and I are in love, please don't ruin our relationship, okay? Don't marry him, please. Wang Jingguan raised her beautiful eyebrows slightly and looked at her. No wonder Zion said you are naive. Are you in love? Did you do something wrong? If he really loves you, can he marry me? Miss Xia, all men he is greedy for beauty. You are so beautiful, but he is just infatuated with you. As a wife, I haven't cried, made trouble, or hanged myself. What's the reason for this trouble? Xiaoling shook her head. No, he really loves me. Wang Jingguan smiled and looked at her condescendingly. Everyone knows how to keep secrets. Aren't you still dreaming of marrying into a rich family if you are so persistent? Let me tell you, it is impossible for Zion to marry you. Marry a wife. Have you ever heard of marrying a virtuous man and taking a concubine? Why can you be his wife? Xiaoling hurriedly denied, no, no. Miss Wang, please don't ruin the relationship between me and Zi Hung. Over the years, she has been spoiled by Pei Zion, and this is the first time she has begged someone in such a low voice. When doing things, my self-esteem is trampled to the ground and shattered. However, she was willing to do it for him. Wang Jingguan looked at her calmly. Ms. Xia, are you okay? I'm just a mistress. How do you really think that you are the true love? If you know the truth, you won't be unable to tolerate me after I marry into the Pei family. If you don't understand, don't forget who will be the emperor's mistress in the future. A cruel smile appeared on her lips. As both women, would Wang Jingguan be willing to share a man with others? From the first day she met Pei Zion, Wang Jingguan fell in love with him and couldn't help herself. Therefore, even if she knew he had a lover, even if he put forward such excessive conditions for her to accept Xiaoling, she endured it. She wanted to marry him and eliminate other women from his heart little by little in the long years to come. One day, she would become Pei Zion's only woman and his legitimate wife. She was jealous of Xiaoling and jealous of Xiaoling being favored by Pei Zion. Her hostility towards Xiaoling is deeper than Xiaoling's towards her. It's a pity that Xiaoling doesn't know all this. Wang Jingguan has been trained to suppress love rivals since she was a child. This is a required course for a wealthy daughter like her. At this time, she looked at the innocent girl in front of her elegantly and reservedly, and said one heartbreaking words after another. Xiaoling ran out crying. All her arrogance disappeared in front of love, and became as low as dust. That feeling was so precious that even the slightest stimulation would hurt her and make her so weak that she could not bear a blow. In front of Wang Jingguan, she only felt that her heart was being squeezed, crushed, and trampled on the ground mercilessly, leaving her in a panic and unable to bear it anymore. Running out of the box, she lowered her head and bumped into someone. The other person's body was so hard that she was knocked to the ground. Her foot was twisted and hurt, so she simply sat on the ground and cried loudly. A man knelt down in front of her. Here, he handed over a white tissue. It hurts to cry like this after just falling. The other party's voice is warm and gentle. She took the tissue and cried even louder. You are Xiaoling, the man said. I have seen you on TV. They all said that you sing very well and that you are the most powerful female singer. How about you? Are you interested in coming to Tianyi? Tianyi. This name is so familiar. Xiaoling was crying so hard that she raised her head to look at the man. He is so handsome, a kind of sunshine-like beauty that is completely different from Pei Zion, healthy wheat-colored skin, slender and well-proportioned limbs like a lazy big cat, a pair of dark green eyes, bright and deep, as if you can see into people's hearts at a glance. Hello, my name is Li Lei. He smiled and stretched out his hand. Li Lei? She couldn't remember where she'd heard this name before, or had she never heard it before. But his lazy smile was so familiar, as if he had known him for many, many years. Unconsciously, Xiaoling let down her guard. "Hello," she said, sobbing. Li Lei checked her foot, "It's sprained. Let me help you set the bone. It hurts a little, so bear with it." She nodded and felt his warm and dry palms hold her ankles. She exerted some force on her ankles and felt a sharp pain. She screamed instinctively and broke out in a cold sweat. He let go of his hand and smiled, "Try and see if you can move." She turned her ankle slightly, and she was really able to move. "Thank you," she said. "Thank you, I knocked you down," Li Lei said, "although your foot is connected, you can't use it in the short term. Where are you going?" "I'll take you there." She wanted to refuse, but the successive changes she had encountered recently made her exhausted. In this cold and cruel world, it seemed that only his smile had some warmth. Out of nowhere, she nodded and said, "I live at number 5 Hongqiang Villa, please excuse me." Li Lei helped her up and got into his car. In the quiet car, she recalled the recent events and her eyes filled with tears again. Li Lei smiled warmly in the spring breeze while driving, "I just bumped into you. It didn't hurt that much. Why are you crying again?" She whispered, "It just hurts." "Would you like to come to Tianyi?" He extended the invitation again, "Have you been wronged by the emperor? Come to me and I promise to treat you well." She lay in the car, crying until she was black. Li Lei looked at her and sighed silently. For some reason, when he saw her for the first time, he felt that this girl should belong to Tianyi. They should be very close. How close is it? As close as soon as he saw her crying, he felt heartbroken and wanted to hold her in his arms. In fact, he did so. The modified off-road vehicle stopped in front of the Hongqiang villa. He opened the door, helped her out of the car, and gave her a long and warm hug. "Girls should be kind to themselves," Li Lei said in a soft voice, "If one day you no longer want to stay in the emperor, go to Tianyi to find me. Do you remember?" She indulged in his warm embrace, and she had an illusion in her trance that she didn't want to leave. "Remember," she nodded and said softly. Li Lei smiled with satisfaction, said goodbye to her, and drove away. She looked at the direction he left with a dazed expression. After a long time, she turned around and walked towards the villa. After walking a few steps, he stopped and saw Pei Ziyan standing in the corridor at some point, looking at her silently. His face was expressionless, and there was a storm brewing in his eyes. She had never seen him show such a terrifying look. For a moment, the blood in his body seemed to freeze. This is the third update on Tuesday. So what? Today is Wednesday, Ying will still get home very late, and she hasn't slept well for 2 days in a row, so there will be no update tonight. The next update will be on Sunday Thursday at 8 p.m. End of this chapter.